So in here we're gonna see a video trying to convince us about problems with Christianity.
The problems with Christianity.
So when you say Christianity, you say Christ. Otherwise, what Christianity is that? Christ has no problems. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we don't expect a random video from YouTube to teach us about Christ, of course. Christ saved yesterday. Millions of martyrs died for him, okay? Not for the Bible, not for a text, for the living Christ. It's not that I want to put the Bible lower, but I want to project that Christ is the center. We are not a group of people born by a book. The church gave birth to the book, and the millions of martyrs died for the living Christ. He gave them power, not the paper. Christianity means Christ, and a random video on the internet that has not found Christ is like being born blind, trying to guide another blind.
Contradictions, unreliability, weak foundation, corruption. For any text to be true, it should at least not contradict itself unambiguously, but that.
So they who have no Christ, they have the contradictions, okay? They are unreliable, not Christ. With them is the corruption.
That's not the case with the Bible. Like, for example, the grandfather of Jesus Christ. Who was he? Was he Jacob?
We would add more that the contradictions often come from ignorance, and ignorance is the main thing. All these people who make videos on the internet come from a position of ignorance. They don't do homework, okay? And of course, there is pride. If you, in 2000 years of a living church, millions of times, we have debunked these arguments, and here is 2025, and they come back again, okay? So if someone has pride, it doesn't matter if you expose his ignorance, his mistake. Tomorrow he gonna stick again, preaching the same debunked arguments. And the video in here brought an example about who is the grandfather of Jesus Christ. I would say this is a classical example of pride. Pride because you must have a big pride in yourself, okay, to believe that Christians for 2000 years didn't see the two different names, and somehow Your Majesty in 2025 came to teach us these things. One genealogy is biological, okay? It mentions the biological ancestors, biological fathers, okay? And the other genealogy is not biological. It mentions the fathers according to the law. So very often this was very quite common that if the elder brother, for example, one brother would die, the other brother would marry his wife to give children. So if I remember correctly, the first child in front of the law would be counted as the child of the dead brother and would take his heritage assets and all these things. So, and people used to die, okay, back then, and there was the law that was asking to give children to the wife of the brother who was left without children. And this is how you end up someone to have a different biological father and a different father in front of the law. Okay, the biological father is one brother and the father in front of the law is another brother. This is why you have two genealogies to cover both cases. But if you don't study, if you don't do homework, what you do, you make a video on Instagram to speak about the problems of Christianity. Classical stuff.
Or was he Heli? The reliability of a text is extremely important to assert its authority, but in the case of the Bible,
The reliability of a text to assert its authority. Our friend in here has no clue about Christianity. The authority doesn't come from the Bible. Okay? If you are a Muslim, maybe if you are a Western Christian, some around the corner group, no living God, no connection to heaven, what you gonna do? You're gonna seek authority to the text, which is not even yours, okay? You're gonna seek the scholars, you're gonna put your logic. Desperation. Authority doesn't come like this, my friend. The authority of the Bible comes from the living God, from His church. The church has a living God. It's as simple as that. Okay.
that reliability fades away. The oldest known Bible manuscript is
The reliability fades away. Really fades away. Fades away for you, my friend. Not for the church who is 2000 years old. And the church is the authority, who has the Spirit and the Christ, the two Paracletes. The church ate with Christ, slept, walked with Him. Okay, that's the authority. That's it.
the Codex Sinaiticus, dated to around 330 to 360 CE, which is centuries after Jesus with no link.
No Bible reliability, Sinaiticus, centuries after Jesus, no link back to him. Really, no link back to him. How was Sinaiticus preserved and came to be? It fell from the heaven. And what is Sinaiticus? You have no clue what is Sinaiticus. Sinaiticus is the holy monastery on Sinai in Egypt. Is an Orthodox monastery still around to this day. Okay, Satan through Egypt is trying now to destroy it, but that's a different discussion. So that is an Orthodox monastery of the church. The church is 2000 years old. How did the Sinaiticus came to be fell from heaven? How we don't have a link to Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ promised will be always with you, will send you the Paraclete, always with the church. You have no clue how things came to be. The church started with a disciple being persecuted, being killed, okay? And it was only on the 4th century, around where the Sinaiticus, which you mentions, comes, that the church could breathe, let alone having the luxury creating Bibles as you want them and all these things. You have no clue about church history. Okay. Look, the archaeological evidence, the graves, the earlier texts, 1st, 2nd century, that mention the stories, that quote the Bible. So you come like a parachute. You say Sinaiticus. Who's going to take you seriously? Only they who have no clue. Only they who know no history. They maybe can take you seriously. But the church, the people who come from the church, no one is going to take you seriously. No one. Especially when we know that Jesus saves today, to this day, he saves atheists, Muslims, every willing soul. They who are saved in Jesus Christ, they have seen Jesus Christ, either in near-death experiences, either in living, either in dreams or whatever. We got people that have seen Christ alive. I am the life, I am the resurrection, he said. Saint Paisios, he died in the 90s. Okay? So look from what position we come and from what position you come. Okay? We come from the position of having the living God. And you are from the position cherry picking whatever information you like and making a video. So the no link argument is totally bogus. It ignores history, it ignores all the holy fathers and the gospels and the other epistles quoted in various works of the fathers. It's a whole church with archaeological evidence, historical evidence, with the living Christ, with everything. And you want to convince the world of the Sinaiticus parachute. Like, we are not Islam, my friend. Islam came like a parachute with a spirit, squeezing spirit in the cave. Islam is the one who has no grain of dust, not one brick of building, not one scholar, not one script, zero before Muhammad. Okay? Do your homework. Do your homework before fighting Jesus Christ.
Back to him. The author of the Gospels remain anonymous too, and only
Anonymous. Oh my God, what thick lies.
later assign names with no trace back to Jesus.
Later assign names with no trace back to Jesus. What do you mean no trace? John slept, walked, ate near Jesus. Jesus said, "He is your son," to his mother when he died. John came to us, came in the island of Patmos in Greece. The cave of the Revelation is still in Patmos. People go and see it. Came in Ephesus, another local Greek Orthodox church. I mean, these are big fat lies. How we have no trace? How did we assign later? The authors didn't come from the heaven. They are members of the church. They are members of the church. As simple as that. The church is the pillar of the truth, not the random video on the internet.
The core doctrine of Christianity is the Trinity, but it's not mentioned in any uncorrupted verse of the Bible.
Not mentioned. We have no clue what you are talking about. What is not mentioned is the single person, God. In the whole Bible, there is not even one verse to say that God is one person. Not even one verse. And even the moment you will find a verse convenient, like for example, God is one, a little bit down, a few verses below, that your hope will be destroyed, because it speaks of the Spirit. In the Old Testament, it speaks of the angel of the Lord, called Lord, okay? Let alone the New Testament, which has the Spirit as Lord and God, the Son as Lord and God, the Father as Lord and God. So how is not the Trinity mentioned? That's a big fat lie. That's a big lie. And you speak of corrupt the Bible. Who are you? You have you such an authority to decide about the Bible? Who are you? You could not. You failed to know about the grandfather of Jesus. Why there are two names? Even this basic thing you didn't know. Who has lost his mind to abandon Christ for a loud, wild, prideful mouth that cannot stand any scrutiny or question? If I ask you 1, 2, 3 questions about your religion, you have no chance to stand. You just don't stand. No Christ, no standing. As simple as that. The Trinity appears in the Jordan River, appears in the Transfiguration Day. The Spirit appears as Lord, as God. The Spirit says, choose this apostle for me. The Spirit speaks, has feeling in the Old Testament, in the New Testament. The Father as well, the Son as well. Why do you lie? Why do you lie and say the Trinity doesn't appear?
Nor is there any unambiguous mention in the Bible of Jesus claiming him to be God.
Another big lie. Jesus said, I am the Alpha and Omega, the way, the truth, the life, the resurrection. What does the Father? I do. Which means what God does, I do. Behaved like God, did what God does. End of story. End of story. Who's gonna believe your lies?
Which is again its foundational claim. Did you notice how I said Trinity isn't mentioned in uncorrupted text?
Did you notice how I said Trinity is not mentioned? Who cares about what you said? You are just a zero. So am I. I also am a zero. If I speak of myself, I also am a zero. If Christ is not in my back, okay? We care for Christ, not for you or for me or for anyone else.
Because it is mentioned in a corrupted one.
Jesus mentioned the Trinity in Matthew 21, 28, 19. Go and baptize and make disciples in the name of the Father, of the Son, and the Spirit. One name, three persons. So stop lying. 1 John 5, 7.
Sir Isaac Newton wasn't just a scientific genius, but also a biblical one. In his work, An Historical Account of Two Notable Corruptions of Scripture, he mentions 1 John 5:7. The only text to mention Trinity unambiguously was a later added text, which is today agreed by almost all.
The only text, okay, to mention the Trinity, such a big lie. He wants to convince us that John 1, 1 John 5, 7 and 5, 8 are inserted in a non-Trinitarian text. This is what he wants to convince us. So the video wants to convince us that we have the insertion of a non-Trinitarian verse, of two non-Trinitarian verses into a, of two Trinitarian verses into a non-Trinitarian chapter. Okay, that's the claim of it, and also we that these two verses, First John 5, 7 and 8, are the only mention of the Trinity, and without it we are done. Well, most people won't care to check, okay? We'll take it as it is, this lie, okay? Now, on the first verse, it says, believe that Jesus is the Christ. You love the Father, you love the Son, born from the Father. So, Father and Son put in parallel, that's the essence, okay? I'm describing the essence of the verse. So, does this sound as non-Trinitarian? Does this sound as a single person God like Allah, not at all. Okay? Not at all. So, even from the first verse, the claim is exposed as totally fake. The claim, which is that we are the Trinity is only in First John 5:7, and we are totally dependent on it. Then on verse 5 it says, our win is to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. Why should we speak like this? Why should we even bother with Jesus? If God is something like Allah, why should we even bother? And we should believe that He is the Son of God. Okay? The only begotten, according to John. Then in verse 6 it says, the Son of God came and got baptized in the Jordan River. Again, this is the essence of the verse, okay? Was testified by the Father. Check book of Matthew on Jordan River. He saved us with his blood, with his sacrifice, and the Spirit testifies of the Son. Okay? So it doesn't seem like a non-Trinitarian text. Even from this chapter, without going elsewhere, it doesn't show, okay, the claim to hold. Then the verse 7, which our friend wants to convince us that is the destroyer of Christianity, it says that the Father testifies in heaven. So, what new brought us this verse? We know from Matthew that the Father testifies. Okay, the Spirit testify. Well, is on verse 6 and is elsewhere. The Spirit on the baptism came as a dove. Okay, so have no surprises here. The three are one. I don't expect from this verse to learn that the three are one. Matthew says, go and make disciples in the name of the Father and the Son and the Spirit. One name, three persons. Three are one. Already I know it. Okay, so don't lie to people. Don't lie to people as if Christianity is all hanging on this verse with the scholars. Which scholars? They who fight with each other, they who make the most ridiculous mistakes. What is a scholar compared to Christ? A big zero, nothing. If you don't have Christ, you are a zero. Verse 9, God testifies about his Son. Okay, so verse 7 was speaking about testifying before and after. Verse 7 is speaking of testifying. So, where is the problem in here? Where is the problem? Okay, we, when you have Christ, when you have the church, you are not desperate for what the scholars would say. We trust Christ, the living God. He gave us this Bible. With this Bible, we get baptized, we get holy. Okay? if there is a copy error, if there is this verse which you complain, everything is in the control and the economy of God. You have God, you have peace of mind. You don't have God, go figure out what scholars will say. Is as simple as that. I hope I made it clear for my friend who sent the video that he is not shocking anyone. Okay, Muslims should be shocked, which before Muhammad have not even one brick, not even one dust of grain from some script, no history, no Muslim, zero, nothing. Hope this video was useful to someone.